The evening of the 11th of June 1962 arrived with a heavy, suffocating silence over the prison block. Frank Morris signaled the brothers, his eyes sharp and focused on the final, critical, dangerous task. They crawled through the narrow holes they had spent months meticulously carving into the concrete walls. The air in the service corridor was thick with dust, dampness, and the scent of old iron. Moving with the grace of shadows, they navigated the labyrinthine network of pipes and dark utility conduits. Every clink of metal against stone sounded like a thunderclap in the stillness of the night. They reached the ventilation shaft, pulling themselves upward with strained muscles and bated, shallow, nervous breaths. The climb to the roof was arduous, requiring them to scale the rusted, treacherous, vertical plumbing pipes. Finally, they emerged onto the cold, wind-swept roof, the vast expanse of the night sky above. The wind whipped around them, carrying the salty, biting spray of the churning San Francisco Bay. They moved across the rooftop, keeping low to avoid the sweeping beams of the prison searchlights. The distance to the shoreline felt like miles, each step a gamble against the watchful guards. They descended the exterior wall, clinging to the cold stone as they neared the dark water. At the shoreline, the freezing waves crashed relentlessly against the jagged, unforgiving rocks of the island. They quickly laid out the rubber raincoats, preparing to inflate their makeshift vessel for the voyage. The raft began to take shape, a fragile patchwork of stolen material and desperate, human ingenuity. Alan West, left behind in his cell, struggled in vain to widen his own blocked opening. He realized with a sinking heart that he would not be joining his companions this night. Back at the water's edge, Morris and the Anglin brothers finished inflating the small, rubber craft. They secured their wooden paddles, crafted from scrap wood and tape, ready for the long crossing. The water looked like black ink, swirling with dangerous, unpredictable currents that could easily claim lives. Without a word, they pushed the raft into the surf, the icy water numbing their tired legs. They climbed aboard, the rubber groaning under their weight as they drifted away from the island. The prison lights grew smaller behind them, fading into the distance like a dying, distant star. They paddled rhythmically, their eyes fixed on the faint, flickering lights of the distant city shore. The current pulled at them, a powerful, invisible hand trying to drag them back into the depths. Morris steered with steady hands, his mind calculating the drift against the relentless, pulling, cold tide. The Anglin brothers worked in unison, their strength fueled by the intoxicating, fragile hope of freedom. Each stroke of the paddle was a defiance of the prison walls that had held them. The darkness swallowed them whole, hiding their small vessel from the eyes of the prison guards. They were no longer inmates. They were ghosts navigating the boundary between life and the unknown. The bay was a vast, hostile wilderness, but they pressed forward into the heart of it. The cold began to seep into their bones, a constant reminder of the ocean's lethal power. Yet they did not falter, their resolve hardened by years of confinement and bitter, quiet resentment. The shoreline of Alcatraz vanished completely, leaving them alone in the middle of the bay. They were small specks on a massive, uncaring sea, drifting toward a destiny yet to unfold. The night air was sharp, biting at their skin, but the adrenaline kept their spirits high. They checked the raft for leaks, patching small tears with the last of their stolen supplies. The silence was broken only by the rhythmic splashing of paddles and the distant foghorn's moan. It was a journey into the abyss, a final, desperate attempt to reclaim their stolen, lost lives. They watched the stars, using them as a compass to guide their path across the water. The city lights grew slightly brighter, offering a tantalizing, shimmering promise of a new, different world. They paddled until their muscles burned, refusing to let exhaustion overcome their singular, driving, intense purpose. The current shifted, pushing them toward the north, forcing them to adjust their course immediately. Morris signaled a turn, the brothers responding instantly to the silent, unspoken, urgent, necessary command. They were a team forged in the fires of adversity, united by this final, daring escape. The water beneath them churned, a reminder of the many who had tried and failed before. But they were different. They had planned, they had prepared, and they had finally, truly escaped. The raft held firm, a testament to the hours spent stitching and sealing in the dark. They moved further from the island, the shadow of Alcatraz becoming nothing more than a memory. The horizon began to soften, the deep black of night yielding to the faint gray dawn. They were exhausted, shivering, and uncertain, yet they continued to move toward the distant, dark shore. The city lights were now distinct, a sprawling grid of life that felt like another, different planet. They paddled with renewed vigor, sensing that they were nearing the end of their long journey. The water grew calmer as they approached the shallows, the currents losing their deadly, pulling grip. They could see the dark outline of the coast, a solid, welcoming, and long-awaited final destination. With one final, collective effort, they drove the raft toward the sandy, hidden, quiet, dark beach. The rubber scraped against the sand, a sound of triumph that echoed in the morning air. They stepped out, their legs shaky, their bodies battered, but their spirits finally, completely, truly free. They disappeared into the mist of the morning, leaving the island and their past behind forever. Following their months of meticulous preparation, the night of June 11 finally arrived for the trio. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers moved with silent precision through the dark, narrow prison walls. Every footstep was carefully calculated to avoid the watchful eyes of the patrolling night guards. They navigated the ventilation shafts with practiced ease, climbing toward the roof of the cell block. Alan West, despite his best efforts, remained trapped behind, unable to widen his opening in time. The cold, biting wind whipped around them as they finally reached the edge of the fortress. They stood atop the towering prison, looking out over the vast, dark expanse of the bay. Below them, the black, churning waters of the San Francisco Bay waited like a silent predator. The currents were known to be lethal, pulling even the strongest swimmers into the deep abyss. They descended the steep walls, their hearts pounding against the rhythm of the crashing ocean waves. Reaching the shoreline, they quickly inflated their makeshift raft constructed from stolen rubber raincoats. They launched their fragile vessel into the freezing surf, disappearing into the thick, midnight fog. The water was icy, numbing their limbs as they paddled away from the imposing island prison. Behind them, the lights of Alcatraz flickered, unaware that 3 men were slipping into history. Morning light eventually crept across the island, revealing the grim reality of the empty cells. Guards made their rounds, expecting the usual silence of inmates sleeping in their assigned bunks. When one guard touched Frank Morris's head, the dummy head rolled onto the cold floor. The lifelike creation, made of soap and paper, stared back with hollow, painted eyes. The prison erupted in absolute chaos as the alarm sirens wailed against the morning sky. A massive manhunt began, involving the FBI and the Coast Guard in a desperate search. They scoured every inch of the bay, searching for any sign of the missing men. The authorities deployed boats and aircraft, combing the turbulent waters for any trace of movement. Only scattered debris from the raft was recovered, floating aimlessly in the cold, gray tides. A wooden paddle drifted near the shore, a silent testament to the struggle against nature. Despite the intensity of the investigation, the 3 men were never seen or heard again. Authorities officially concluded that they perished in the freezing currents, lost to the deep sea. Yet, the total absence of bodies fueled decades of persistent speculation and haunting local legends. The mystery deepened as investigators failed to find any definitive proof of their tragic end. Mysterious letters surfaced over the years, hinting at a life lived far from the rock. Whispered sightings in distant towns kept the possibility of their successful escape alive and well. The question of their ultimate fate remains a subject of intense debate among many historians. To this day, the daring escape stands as an enduring enigma of the American prison. the world continues to wonder if the trio met a watery grave that night, or perhaps they successfully vanished into a new life, forever outsmarting the formidable Alcatraz fortress. Their legacy is etched into the stone walls, a testament to the human desire for freedom, even when faced with the most impossible and unforgiving odds imaginable in the world. The silence of the bay guards the truth, keeping the secret of their final journey. Whether they lived or died, the ghost of their escape lingers in the cold air. The rock remains a silent witness to the night three men defied the impossible dream. Every crashing wave against the island shore echoes the mystery of their long-lost, daring flight. The legend of Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers will never truly fade from history. They remain shadows in the mist, forever drifting between the known and the unknown reality. The mystery endures as a haunting reminder of the limits of human control and power. Each passing year brings new theories, yet the truth remains buried beneath the dark waves. The prison, now a tourist attraction, still holds the echoes of that fateful June night. Visitors walk the same corridors, imagining the men chipping away at their concrete walls. The dummy heads, once tools of deception, now serve as symbols of a master plan. The ingenuity required to build a raft from raincoats remains a marvel of human desperation. No one knows for sure if they made it to the distant, welcoming shore. The bay keeps its secrets well, hiding the path they took through the dark. Perhaps they are still out there, living under names that no one will recognize. The possibility of their survival is a spark that keeps the legend burning bright. It is a story of defiance against the most secure walls ever built by man. The cold water of the Pacific remains a barrier that no one can truly cross. Their escape was not just a physical act, but a triumph of the human spirit. Even in failure, they achieved what many considered to be an impossible, heroic feat. They left behind a legacy that challenges the very nature of confinement and control. History books record the facts, but the imagination fills in the missing, vital pieces. The Alcatraz escape will always be a story of shadows, mystery, and endless questions. And so, the three men remain, forever drifting in the fog of an unsolved mystery.